The interstate highway system is a wonderful thing. It makes it possible to go from coast to coast without seeing anything or meeting anybody. Famous words spoken by one Charles Kuwalt back in 1990 upon the completion of Interstate 40 to Wilmington, North Carolina. But did he have a point? Does the interstate highway system, or Interstate 40 in particular, allow you to cross America and see nothing? As someone who's very familiar with Interstate 40, growing up in North Carolina, I also got to travel that full route from Raleigh to California back during my time in the Marine Corps when I drove from Raleigh, North Carolina to my duty station in California. And on this video, I'm going to tell you what it's like to cross the country on Interstate 40. And is it really a case of you not seeing anything? Go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and let's find out as we cross America on Interstate 40.
Now, of course, before all this, we'll talk briefly about the history of the Great I-40. Interstate 40 was one of the original interstates outlined in 1955's Yellow Book. Its western portion from Barstow, California to Oklahoma City was to follow along or replace the existing Route 66. The eastern terminus was to be at Interstate 85 in Greensboro, North Carolina. Small towns initially were excited for its construction, originally thinking it would boost traffic to their businesses. Yet later on, they discovered that major commercial chain hotels and restaurants built businesses at interstate exits, which had the opposite effect of taking traffic away from small downtowns. The final part completed in California ran from Gough's Essex to Ludlow, bypassing a two-lane segment of US 66 and opening in 1973. The final segment of I-40 in Arizona opened on October 13, 1984, leading to the decommissioning of US 66 a year later. The section through Tijeras Canyon, directly overlaying US 66, was the last to open in New Mexico, completed in 1980. In Texas, Interstate 40 was completed by 1985 and completely replaced US 66, which was then decommissioned. On June 2, 1975, a ceremony was held on Interstate 40 near Eric, marking the completion of the final 17 miles of the 616-mile-long rural interstate highway system in Oklahoma. In Arkansas, I-40 was finished in 1973 with the opening of the Hernando de Soto Bridge. Prior to this, Interstate 40 used the old Memphis, Arkansas bridge with I-55. Interstate 40 was completed in 1974 in Tennessee after a long battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court over its routing in Memphis. We discussed that on this video. In North Carolina, the extension of I-40 to Raleigh was approved in 1969, and the highway was finally completed in the state in 1990 with the extension to Wilmington, and a sign with the distance to Barstow was erected. As for what it's like to drive on this one, we are going to go from east to west, North Carolina to California, so let's get it started. Coming out of Wilmington off US 117, College Road is where I-40 begins its path. Technically, we're not even in Wilmington, but in an unincorporated area known as Kings Grant. North Carolina gives us a proper Begin I-40 sign as we go from Surface Boulevard to mighty Interstate. US 117 is sent off on the first exit and I-40 travels alone. In North Carolina, sports are a pretty big deal, so they have named this section of I-40 the Michael Jordan Freeway, after the greatest basketball player of all time, who hails from nearby Wilmington. We are in a more north-south direction here, and the next interchange is with the new-ish spur route known as Interstate 140. The eastern section is still named NC 140, and signage here is from Myrtle Beach and Jacksonville. Our control city is Raleigh. You'll see a mileage sign here for Barstow, California, 2,554 miles away, along with Raleigh and Benson. This larger sign replaces the older sign that only had Barstow, which was stolen 5 times before the NCDOT just gave up on replacing it. So far, this one still stands. Between the Raleigh area and Wilmington, there isn't much to see. You'll be passing through some of the most boring and depressing parts of North Carolina. Even the interchange with I-95 is one of the least interesting of crossings for such major interstates. North Carolina uses Benson and Fayetteville to the south and Rocky Mount and Smithfield to the north as control cities. Benson and Smithfield appearing as a testament to North Carolina's eagerness to try and draw traffic to its small towns. And as a sign of the tremendous growth of the Triangle area, you're going to see the freeway open up to several more lanes as far south as the interchange here with NC 42. Growing up, I remember when this all was just a little 4-lane highway. Now look at I-40, all grown up. Next up is a major construction zone. Here we have an interesting junction with both NC 540 and I-42. 2 partially completed freeways, NC 540 being the outer beltway around Raleigh, and I-42 following the US 70 corridor east to help folks from Raleigh get to the beach a little faster. The completed design will look something like this. From here to the Raleigh Beltway, I-40 opens up to a whopping 10 lanes, one of the widest sections of freeway in the state. Cars, cars, cars. The suburbs around Raleigh are growing rapidly, and North Carolina is giving them the capacity they need. As we approach the Beltway, you'll see signage for I-87 and I-440. Yep, that is not your imagination. There is now an I-87 in North Carolina. It is planned to eventually connect Raleigh to Norfolk, Virginia, though I'd be surprised if Virginia even bothered with it in our lifetimes. So seeing I-87 down here in the South should make all the New York transplants feel right at home. I-440 used to be signed around the entire Beltway, but the concurrency with I-40 was removed due to driver confusion. I-40 travels south of downtown, so you can't see it unless you look to the right. The next major interchange is with US 1, which serves as the main north-south highway for Raleigh. US 64 leaves the Beltway to join US 1 to the southwest. And as we pass Cary to the west, a famous relocation spot for New Yorkers, we encounter the interesting freeway stub known as Wade Avenue. Contrary to popular belief, this was never a partial stub or section of I-40. It always was intended as an additional connector. This stretch of I-40 runs through the heart of the Triangle area. First, the Raleigh-Durham Airport, then the second interchange with I-540. And after entering Durham County, we pass by the economic engine of the area, Research Triangle Park. After Research Triangle Park, there is yet another auxiliary interstate, and that is I-885. Yep, I told you guys on that older video that North Carolina was swimming in interstates. I-885 forms an eastern loop around Durham and takes you to I-85 north of downtown. That's also the direction you want to go if you're interested in seeing downtown Durham, as I-40 mostly bypasses it to the south. At the exit for US 15501, you can go to Chapel Hill to the south, or you can check out that other school to the north. This section of I-40 is also named the Roy Williams Highway after the Carolina Tar Heels coach. It is after this interchange where I-40 finally loses all of its lanes and drops back down to 2. So this upcoming stretch is one of the more annoying and congested parts to drive. Fortunately, the NCDOT is in the process of widening it as we speak. Approaching I-85, you'll see signage for I-85 north to Durham, and there is nothing for I-85 south as we are about to join it. I-40 comes off a ramp and joins I-85 from the right, as I-85 was here first, and I-40 was late to the party. The mileage numbers here also use I-85 rather than I-40. Between here and Greensboro, the concurrency with I-85 was widened to 8 lanes from 2, and every bridge was torn down and replaced back in the 90s. 30 years later and millions of new residents, it's still getting the job done. So much for induced demand in North Carolina. One thing I will say about this stretch is that it is usually crawling with state troopers. However, they seem to not bother you unless you're doing like 85 miles per hour or higher. Approaching Greensboro, you'll get several gigantic overhead signs to let you know what's coming. With the recently completed Greensboro Loop, I-85 will exit with the far left lanes while I-40 continues straight. You'll also see additional auxiliary routes for I-785 and I-40 listed, and if you want to access these, you will use the I-40 path. Interstate 840 is the beltway around Greensboro, while I-785 is to connect Greensboro to Danville, Virginia. In the future, but North Carolina couldn't wait to sign it anyway, despite it not existing outside of the loop for now. I-40 does travel closer to the core of Greensboro than it did Raleigh, and despite only 6 lanes here, the traffic is generally smooth. Moving I-85 to the Beltway has greatly improved things at this interchange that was formerly known as Death Valley. The Greensboro-Winston-Salem area is practically swimming in interstates, and as such has some of the best flowing traffic of any metro area in the country. Interstate 40 is mostly a breeze through here. You'll encounter the other side of I-840 along with Interstate 73 near the airport. At US 421, despite I-40 being the one side from Winston-Salem, it is the highway that will take you closer to downtown Winston-Salem. After this, you'll encounter a construction area along with Interstate 74. Interstate 74 will eventually be routed onto this eastern loop around Winston-Salem, making it yet another North Carolina city with a beltway. If I didn't know any better, I think Texas and North Carolina were in an arms race to see who can build the most loops around their cities. Next up, there is Interstate 285. Yep, Georgia is no longer the only one with an I-285. This one here runs south to I-85 in Lexington to give Winston-Salem a more direct interstate connection to Charlotte. And after an almost continuous trek through developed areas, the scenery along I-40 in North Carolina starts to calm down after this second interchange with US 421. That highway continues west as a freeway out to Wilkesboro, and surprisingly, North Carolina hasn't tried to make it into an interstate just yet. The control city for I-40 is Statesville, which is known for being the junction of I-40 and I-77, an overburdened interchange which has been undergoing a complete reconstruction over the past few years. Believe it or not, this area is actually a part of the Charlotte metro area. Yes, it stretches that far north, so technically I-40 passes through all three of North Carolina's largest metro areas now. After Hickory and Catawba County, things are starting to get a bit hilly. We are approaching the mountains at this point. Outside of Black Mountain, we get our first taste of mountain driving. Fortunately, it's 3 lanes on each side, so there's room to pass the slower moving trucks. And then you reach Asheville, North Carolina's premier mountain town. It has a loop known as Interstate 240 that swings to the north. Then there is I-26, which is slated for a very expensive redesign out here in the future. In this area, US 74 is hanging around and leaves near Clyde on the Great Smoky Mountains Expressway, another scenic route you can take to get to Waynesville or all the way out to Little Murphy. Now, between here and the Tennessee state line is a section that you've seen in the news that was wrecked by Hurricane Helene. I haven't been through there since then, but before then, it was quite the scenic route through the Pigeon River Gorge. Things might look a little different when North Carolina finishes rebuilding the highway. And then we cross over into Tennessee. In Tennessee, I-40 has its longest mileage of 455 miles. Entering Tennessee, we are still doing deep mountain driving until you reach the city of Newport. And after crossing Douglas Lake is the interchange with Interstate 81. I-81 ends here at this interchange, but the interesting part about this one is that the I-40 westbound movement is the primary movement here, but drops to 1 lane. Tennessee loves these Y interchanges, and this is going to be the first of many that you see in this state. Our next interchange of interest is with Tennessee 66, which can take you to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville, a hotbed of good old Tennessee tourism. It also takes you to the gates of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most popular national park in the United States. Coming into Knoxville, we've got 6 lanes, and the first major interchange is with I-640. This one loops around the city to the north, but it's not a worthy bypass. However, it is useful if you are wanting to get on I-75 northbound. Approaching downtown, you can get a pretty decent glimpse of the skyline to your left. I-275 is a short spur that connects north back to I-75 or I-640. And after all these references to I-75 and opening up to 8 lanes here, we finally encounter that interstate as it joins at the second interchange with I-640. Tennessee has widened this area with the concurrency to 6 to 8 lanes throughout, and we are passing through the heart of Knoxville's suburbia. Big box stores and chain restaurants dominate the landscape. And then there's a spur here for I-140 to Maryville. At the upcoming Y interchange, we get an even split of the lanes with I-75 bound for Chattanooga and I-40 to Nashville. And between here and Nashville, I-40 can be quite the drag. It's just you and the trucks. Lots of trucks. Things start to change as we reach Lebanon. This is the sign that you're entering the Nashville metro area. Right after Lebanon, lanes start being added and you'll see signage for Interstate 840. Interstate 840 is a gigantic outer loop of Nashville, originally proposed to be a full outer beltway. It was reduced to only the southern side being built for reasons. Tennessee built I-840 to get ahead of the curve and not end up like Atlanta, who desperately needs an outer loop today, but can't build one. Interstate 840 is the more peaceful route, but it's still faster to use I-40 for now. You can feel things getting busier as we close in on Nashville. I-40 passes by Nashville's airport, and then we encounter the Briley Parkway, a non-interstate beltway around the city. Nashville has a bunch of clusters of congestion with how the interstates come together here. The first one, which might be the worst one, is the one here between I-40 and I-24. It immediately has another junction with the I-440 loop, which despite its number is often not worth using to try and bypass downtown. I-24, I-40, and I-65 around Nashville merge like a mixing bowl, and you'll see a lot of ridiculous lane switching and merging as drivers cross over trying to continue onto their desired interstate. This probably seemed like a good idea in the 1960s when Nashville was much smaller, but today it is a complete mess. But on the bright side, if you look to your right, downtown Nashville looks pretty cool from the window. At this Y interchange, I-40 exits to the left and you have survived the Nashville loop. Now, Nashville's city limits are very large as it has merged with Davidson County, so you're still in Nashville proper all the way out to exit 192 for McCory Lane. Between Nashville and Memphis, there's not much to see other than the town of Jackson. And a good ways out of the city, we reach I-269, Memphis's outer beltway. It is signed for Jackson, Mississippi and Collierville, and since it doesn't cross the Mississippi River, it's not a suitable bypass for I-40 traffic. But you got to give Tennessee some credit for at least partially building these outer beltways around its largest cities. In this beltway to beltway zone, the truck traffic tends to pick up, but we do get widened to 6 lanes. And then we meet Interstate 240. At this I-240 interchange, I-40 was originally intended to run directly towards downtown Memphis with what is now Sam Cooper Boulevard, which we discussed in this video. After that plan was blocked, I-40 was moved to the northern side of the beltway. Then after a loop around the north side of Memphis, we head back towards downtown. Despite Google jumping the gun on their map, I-69 does not yet exist in Memphis, but in the future it is indeed planned to run concurrently with I-40 here. At the Y interchange in downtown Memphis, where we get reacquainted with I-240, you get a pretty nice shot of the city. And don't miss the famous pyramid to your right. Exit 1 is your last chance to stop in Memphis. Otherwise, it's the Mississippi River, the Hernando de Soto Bridge, and our next state, Arkansas. Now for me, this is the point where Interstate 40 begins to lean into that see nothing territory. Crossing the country on I-40 and crossing the Mississippi kind of represents a major drop in things and places along the roadway, as this is where we get a dramatic decrease in the population density of the country. We enter Arkansas on the Mississippi River floodplains, and then we meet Interstate 55. This section here in West Memphis is like a truck stop heaven. I mean, you have got it all. You got Love's, you got the TA, you got Flying J's, you got all your fast food spots, Wendy's, McDonald's, you got hotels, Comfort Inns, you name it. If you want to take a break, but don't care to stay in the city itself, this is the ideal area to do it. A little further down, there's even a Walmart and a Kroger. From here to Little Rock, you're getting a view of the very rural South. In some ways, you feel like you've traveled back in time out here. It's a standard 4-lane rural roadway with heavy truck traffic. And the first interchange in the Little Rock area is for I-440, signed for Texarkana. This one serves as a shortcut to I-30. The newly signed I-57 is up next for Jacksonville, which before traveling to Little Rock, I didn't even know there was a Jacksonville in Arkansas. Then shortly afterwards is the actual I-30, which is signed for Little Rock. Interstate 30 is actually the shortest of the east-west interstates ending in 0. I-40 is 6 lanes through here and travels through the city of North Little Rock, never entering Little Rock proper. Exiting Little Rock, we get another auxiliary route, which is I-430, signed for Texarkana. This one loops back around to I-30 and it takes you to some of the more upscale parts of Little Rock. While on I-40, we have Fort Smith and Oklahoma City. Arkansas actually keeps I-40 to 6 lanes from here to Conway. After Conway, we're back to 4 lanes and we encounter Interstate 49 outside of Fort Smith. Interstate 49 heads north to Walmart land, and in the future, Arkansas has big dreams of it running south to Texarkana. The 540 spur will take you into Fort Smith proper. The next state is Oklahoma. Entering Oklahoma, things get flat and boring. The first major interchange is with the Muskogee Turnpike. This one takes you to Tulsa, and a toll must be paid, of course, because this is Tullahoma after all. Before reaching OKC, we enter the city of Shawnee, which at one point was in competition with Oklahoma City to become the central hub of the state. Obviously, Oklahoma City won that battle. As we approach OKC, one thing I will say about Oklahoma is that they have done a good job at building up the roadway infrastructure around their 2 largest cities of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, even if it's tolled. The first sign is the Kickapoo Turnpike, now Interstate 335, forming a far eastern loop around the city. At I-240, you'll see signage for Dallas and Lawton, as Oklahoma views this as a road to get you to I-35 or I-44, rather than to bypass I-40 itself for through traffic. After exit 147, we go from 4 to 6 lanes, and you'll see the warning for one of the more sharper curves on the interstate system. The pavement is smooth, and you'll get a few nice views of the OKC skyline from here. I-35 is up next, and taking it north, you can go to Wichita, while we enter a short concurrency next to downtown. After those I-35 guys depart southbound for Dallas, we get a view of OKC's signature Scissortail Bridge, a very interesting structure that connects the sections of the park of the same name. Oklahoma provides up to 10 lanes here, surprisingly wide for Oklahoma. At the interchange with Interstate 44, we finally see the next control city, which is Amarillo, Texas. The Cloverleaf interchange with the Kilpatrick Turnpike is the last major one for the OKC area. And after passing Garth Brooks Boulevard, yep, that Garth Brooks that you're thinking of, who is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, you are pretty much out of OKC's gravity and it is back to rural plains. Even still, Oklahoma keeps it up to 6 lanes until El Reno. Now, if you didn't think I-40 got boring after Memphis, it is more than official after OKC. Between here and the Texas state line, we've got about 150 miles of flat, boring nothing. Make sure you have your coffee, your Celsius, your Red Bull, or whatever your choice is because you might struggle to stay awake. Now, Clinton does have a Route 66 museum as we are now on the part of I-40 which replaced that famous highway. Welcome to Texas. You see the sign, but there is not much difference in this part of Texas from driving in Oklahoma. Well, except of course the frontage roads. We get some for I-40 shortly after crossing the state line. Skipping past the Boredom, near Amarillo, the exit for the I-40 business route follows the old Route 66, while we take a path south of downtown. I-40 in Amarillo is peak interstate highway culture, meaning it has all of the associated businesses and amenities that are known for locating along interstate exits. Endless hotels, gas stations, truck stops, and fast food chains line Interstate 40 out here. Your brain might get overloaded from all the signs and billboards vying for your attention. If you're taking a long trip, then Amarillo is the ideal place to rest for a night, and they have fully embraced that role. I'd also say that Amarillo is the point on I-40 where you start to feel like you're officially in the western United States. At the center of the area is this turbine interchange that ends Interstate 27, which you can take southbound to Lubbock, or you can go north into downtown onto this bizarre setup of U.S. highways. After you've rested in your hotel of choice, visited your favorite fast food chain, and filled up the gas tank, it is on to New Mexico. But before leaving Texas, one thing of interest are some of the grade intersections on this part of I-40 in violation of interstate standards. You don't see that every day. Entering New Mexico, as expected, the frontage roads are no more. Not everyone has those big Texas dollars for roads. However, New Mexico does have in place an old two-lane portion of Route 66, which runs along Business 40 to Cumcari. Before reaching the Albuquerque area, we must navigate a mountain pass, as New Mexico proves to us here that not all mountains are scenic. And after exiting the pass, we are now in the Albuquerque area. The signature feature here is the Big I interchange with I-25. This interchange was famous for its original design being the most congested in the nation, overwhelmed by 10 times of its design capacity. The current redesign has reduced that congestion by over 90%. Interstate 40 is a spacious and modern 8-lane freeway here in Albuquerque, so New Mexico has done a good job. Surprisingly, there are no auxiliary routes in the state. Interstate 25 is signed for Santa Fe to the north and Las Cruces to the south. If you're interested in the Route 66 stuff, it takes Central Avenue through downtown Albuquerque. Otherwise, things calm down after the Rio Grande and it's back up to a rural 2-lane freeway. The next control city that you've never heard of is Gallup, known for its redstone cliffs. And then we cross into Arizona. In Arizona, we are immediately greeted by the features and formations that you imagine when you think of this state. A welcome change from previous states. Getting to Flagstaff is going to feel like quite the chore, but you do have things along the way to stop at, such as the Petrified National Park and some Route 66 stuff in Winslow. And then finally, we enter Flagstaff. If you come through here in the summer, Flagstaff is a welcome sigh of relief from the Arizona heat. And in the winter, you might see some snow. Business 40 runs through downtown for some Route 66 nostalgia, while us on I-40 meet the Arizona Interstate, I-17. At I-17 southbound, the control city is shown as Phoenix, while Arizona 89A leads into downtown Flagstaff. Then note for us, Interstate 40 for Los Angeles. Unlike other states, Arizona just gets straight to the point with the control city, showing you where you want to go rather than some obscure little town in their own state. So let's get moving on to LA. But before Kingman, we have a major deviation from the old US 66 route. I-40 takes a direct path to Kingman, while the old route had a more northerly path, now signed as Arizona 66. Just east of Kingman is the interchange with US 93. This is significant in that it is the future Interstate 11 corridor to eventually connect Phoenix and Las Vegas. Also, the good quality pavement that you had in Flagstaff is not so in Kingman. Arizona has some work to do out here. US 93 joins in the approach here. Beale Street in Kingman features the Route 66 attractions, while I-40 travels through the Anywhere USA type of development. US 93 departs to the north towards Las Vegas at Beale Street, though a new interchange is under construction that will carry the new Interstate 11. So here we drop the gamblers headed to Vegas, while we make our way to California. I-40 hooks around to the south to avoid this mountain, and then we enter our final state, California. Crossing the Colorado River officially puts us in California. In California, I-40 is known as the Needles Freeway and passes through the Mojave Desert. We curve back to the north and pass by Needles. And don't worry, you're not going to see much on I-40 out here. It gets quite deserted. It is the desert after all. In fact, I say you probably will see more trucks than cars, on I-40 in California. Interchanges and amenities get fewer and further between out here, so make sure you are gassed up. In this desolate area, the National Trails Highway follows the old Route 66, where you can find Amboy and Roy's Motel. Amboy is probably one of the best examples of a place bypassed by the interstate highway system and died out as a result. This is the part of I-40 depicted in the movie Cars. Back when I was stationed in 29 Palms, we used to travel through Amboy and the Mojave National Preserve on our path to get to Vegas. It's a nice area to test out the top speed of your car, but you didn't hear that from me. The exits out here don't list control cities, just the name of the road, because, well, there aren't any cities. Approaching Barstow, a major logistics hub, we have the freight train tracks running alongside the interstate. The final exit is for Main Street to get to downtown. And if you want to get onto I-15 northbound towards Las Vegas, then you must exit here. Otherwise, continuing forward gives us the option of I-15 to San Bernardino or California 58. Now, California 58 is significant in that it has been rumored and proposed as a future extension of I-40 to the west, out to Bakersfield. California has been upgrading the route to interstate standards over time, but as of now, there is no official plan to add it to I-40. So Interstate 40 merges seamlessly into I-15 to mark the official end of the interstate. To get to Los Angeles, drivers can continue south to I-10 and then head west for LA. And the Route 66 sign can be found in Santa Monica Beach for those who are following that route. But this is where it ends for I-40.
All right, guys, there it is. That was a long one. Interstate 40. So back to the question. Does I-40 allow you to cross America and see nothing? I'm actually inclined to agree. As I told you, in my opinion, after you pass Memphis, Interstate 40 pretty much dies down. I think it's probably the worst highway to cross America on if you want to actually see things. However, the caveat, you have to make an effort to get off the interstate into some of these little cities and towns, particularly Route 66. So the choice is yours when you're on Interstate 40. But even with all that being said, Interstate 40 is in the books. And I'd love to know what you guys think about Interstate 40. What is your experience with it? Do you think it's the most boring interstate to cross the country on, east to west? Or do you think it's better than some of the others? What is your favorite part of Interstate 40 if you have crossed it? And which part do you think is the worst? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.